fact that you guys were part of the same draft class, and he's still going. Does it just kind of amaze you, just, sitting here and then watching tape on him now, as a coach at this point?
Yeah, it's extremely frustrating. Like every time I throw on the tape when I have to play him, I'm anticipating and hoping that there's going to be some sort of, he's falling off and his skill is declining, and it's not at all, which is just, it's astounding. I was really, I was part of I got to see that transition last year, being in the division with him, where it felt like early on in the year with him, like they were trying to kind of mold together kind of his Patriot stuff with kind of what Bruce Arians, and has always done. And it felt like as the year went on, they transitioned to kind of being like Byron Leftwich. That's his offense. That's Bruce Arians' offense. And they got farther away from what they had done in New England. And unfortunately, that means more explosives. That means more downfield shots. And for all the things people thought weren't necessarily his strength, he's demonstrating are his strength. So it's a great challenge. This is why you coach, this is why you play, to go against opponents like this and see what you're made of.
How have you seen his game evolve, Jeff, from when you were kind of first seeing him his first few years in the league to where he is now?
It's just elite recognition, execution, poise. I can think of a million adjectives to throw at this guy. He is undoubtedly the best quarterback that's ever played this game, for so many reasons. And it's exciting. It's exciting for especially a young defense like ours. A lot of them had never played against him, to go and see what you got made of against the best. So they're excited about it, which is crazy, but they're excited about it.
Jeff, you didn't grow up that far from where he grew up. Do you remember hearing about him at all when he was in high school or anything like that?
I don't. No, I don't. But like my claim to fame is though that I was drafted before him. That's my that's my one thing I've done better than him.
Jeff, how did the safeties come through last week? We talked about that a lot going into the game. How do you think they performed?
I thought exceptional, considering like Will Parks got here, like 3 minutes before the game, and so did Kai. I mean, that is like, we are in absolute uncharted territory. It's one thing to play a young guy. It's one thing to play a practice squad player that you elevate. It's another thing to play two guys that have absolutely no background with this defense, and some familiarity because they were, obviously being with San Francisco and then with Will being with Philly, like there's some like stuff, but I thought it was just an exceptional job by Marco Emmanuel, by Chip Vaughn, for those two guys, plus all those safeties, for them to get ready in the short amount of time that they had and play as well as they did is a huge testament to those guys.
Jeff, presumably you had to simplify the defense last week because you had so many of those new guys. It's one thing going against a rookie quarterback like Trevor Lawrence. Maybe he wasn't able to take advantage of certain things, but going against a guy like Brady, if you're simplifying because your youth group is so young, does that scare you a little bit, because of his experience and facing your inexperience? Yeah,
he can definitely affect your sleep patterns when you prepare for this guy. It's a game that you play because you'd like to try to deceive, you'd like to do some different things, the problem is once the ball snapped and you start going to where you're going, there's nothing he hadn't seen, and people for the past 20 years have tried to manipulate him and tried to get him off his mark and confuse him, and it happens very, very rarely. So ultimately, we're going to have to challenge and we're going to have to win our one-on-one battles, and that's what it comes down to. And it's going to be an all-day event.
Hey, Jeff, how well do you know Todd Bowles, if at all? And I'm curious what your respect for him as a defensive mind, and maybe what kind of, even though you're not going against his defense per se yourself, what are some of the characteristics to his defenses?
Yeah, I think he is exceptional at what he does. I've had a tremendous amount of respect over the years for not only schematically, I think a lot of people get caught up in that. He does some cool stuff, some interesting things, and he gives quarterbacks some problems, some offenses, some serious problems. But I've always respected, probably more than anything, how hard his guys play for him. That is an absolute thing that's been since he's been coaching. His guys play hard, they play physical, they play the game the right way. So tremendous amount of respect for him. A guy that obviously was a head coach here, but I think it won't be long before he gets another opportunity.
Jeff, one position that had some questions coming to you was cornerback, but throughout the year, they've actually been one of your you guys' strengths this year. So how much credit does that go to Tony Oden, just being able to help develop those guys?
Huge. Between Tony, between Ricky Manning Jr., like those two guys worked tirelessly with those young ones, and they had by far the hardest coaching job coming into this year. Not because we had a lack of talent necessarily, but we just had guys that hadn't played the position and just weren't experienced and hadn't been out there and hadn't had the time on task and the turn. So I feel like, Tony's done just an amazing job. He's got a way about himself where very good teacher, very demanding, but at the same time has an easiness about him where guys can hear him and guys can, we knew that there was going to be setbacks, and I knew there was going to be times where they weren't going to play okay, and things were going to happen, which is natural and normal and part of the learning progress. And it's part of young players in this league. I thought he was exceptional in those times, being a calm voice, being a guy that they could listen to and hear. And he gets a ton of credit for the progress they've made this year.
Jeff, you talked about your young players being excited to go up against Brady. How do you think they can benefit from this experience, and how do you think it can help their development?
I think just observing him and playing against him, I think it can give you such a clear vision of what it can look like. Because here's a guy that obviously he's not gifted with all of the natural stuff. He's not gifted with all the stuff that's just given to a man. He is self-made in every way. I think it's just such a clear example for those young guys that you can go as far as you're willing to work. And if you put the time in, you will be rewarded. And if you sacrifice and do all the things necessary to be successful in this league that you can, regardless of sometimes your draft status, your contract status, your physical tools. So from that standpoint, I think he, for years he's been a huge inspiration to players around the league that aren't necessarily as physically gifted with all the stuff. You can still be, a very good player in this league.
Any more questions for Coach?
Yeah, Jeff, have you ever seen a quarterback's arm change as dramatically as his has throughout his career? Because when he first came to the league, he really wasn't known as a big armed guy. And now suddenly the arm strength is not only did it get better as his career went on, but at this age, it's still just as dominant.
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think, he obviously takes exceptional care of his body and he's continually growing and finding new ways to get better physically. That's absolutely evident by by what he is on Sundays. I think too, the offense that he's in now is a little different than what he was in New England. In New England, it was a lot of short, intermediate, choice routes, option routes. And plus that was kind of like the receiving core that was around him, a lot of guys that could separate a man and the short intermediate stuff is what they majored in. So I think now he's got, for one, he's in an offense that pushes down the field more. That's a Bruce Arians staple forever. They're going to take vertical shots down the field, but he's got a stable of receivers that can all do it, whether it's, and I know there's some guys that have been injured, but out still, Mike Evans and Antonio Brown and and Godwin, and he's got, and even Perryman, as you guys know firsthand from last year, like Perryman can run, he can get down the field, and he provides a vertical shot. So I think physically he's taken his preparation, he's taken his all that he does to prepare for this game to another level. But I think at the same time, and he's part of an offense now that does that pushes the ball down the field and asks him to do that. And for all the things I think people might have thought he couldn't do, he's proving otherwise.
Jeff, you got your defense. You guys run man. I think it's like top 3 or top 5 in the NFL, and obviously that's a coverage that Brady has had a lot of success with. So what is that battle of like sticking to your guns, but also knowing that your guns is Tom Brady's strength? So what's that balance like? We're trying to figure out how to mix and match that, especially with a quarterback that, I mean, the words don't even explain how great he is.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the analytics would tell you he's good versus everything, so, sometimes the beauty of man is, especially when you got a younger group and you got a group that, like with the safety position, we don't have a ton of time on task and experience within the system. Sometimes man is an opportunity to shut your brain off and then just go challenge and win. But we have to be judicious, and we have to find our spots to play zone, and we have to try to give him different looks and different presentations. And that's just, it's the game that we play within the game, and it's unique. It's funny that you say that we're top 3 or 5, and I wouldn't have thought that, I know from a third down perspective, I know we play man on third down, especially in the shorter windows, but I felt like we've been more zone on first and second down. It would be interesting to, when we, really assess this thing at the end of the season and see how we fall. But yeah, it's a game. I wish I had the answer. Unfortunately, I don't know if there's a defense coordinator that's had the answer or will have the answer ever, but it's going to be a fantastic challenge, and I'm excited for our guys to go out there, and they've made some progress as of late. I felt like there's been some growth, although that doesn't always show up in the statistics. But to really go up against not only a great quarterback and great team, but a team that's got a lot on the line. They're fighting for obviously the number 1 seed in the NFC, and we're really trying to create a standard here as far as December football, and when it really matters, and the best teams play their best ball when their best ball is required, and to create a standard as we go forward here. That December is when we peak, so to go up against a team that's got a lot on the line like that it's important for our progress.
Jeff, we spoke to
last question here.
We spoke to Pinnock, and he talked about how at first it wasn't a smooth thing for him to move to safety, but it became smooth. And I think Rich had asked him, how do you see yourself now, as a corner or safety, both, whatever? And he said, I'm a safety. That I'm playing safety in the scheme. That's how I, view myself. How do you view him now? Is this something where he's going to stick at safety, or are you going to make him just kind of he could play corner, play safety? What are your thoughts on him at this point?
Yeah, I personally, I would love for him to stay at the safety position and us just help him grow and not mess with him and move him back and forth like you do sometimes. I just think he's got a unique skill set. He's got length, he's got size, he's got movement, he's got speed. Now he just needs time on task, he needs turns, and he's experience playing the safety position. We ask our safeties, especially in a third down capacity, to play a lot of man-to-man. So he's that type of guy that we're looking for in that safety position, that not only can play the safety stuff on first and second down and in a lot of the zones that we play, but then when it comes down to times when we got to challenge and play man-to-man, he's a guy that can come down and he can play man. That's it's like the ideal profile from that standpoint. The guys that have played corner but have the size to play safety. So I hope he just keeps growing and building on what he's already done at the safety position.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Coach.